What's up, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is wangari. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for continuously engaging and watching my content. My high school viewers really came through for my last video, and it made me realize that I may have been neglecting my high school viewers in giving a lot of post-high school kind of content. I sincerely apologize, and I'm here to keep giving you guys content that is useful when you're in high school, because I aim to educate and be educated. This video is targeted mostly to high school people. This can also work for college. I use the same principles and it worked my first year of college, and these are study tips that I found helpful throughout my academic career. Something interesting I learned in college is there's a lot of scientific research that goes into memory retention and learning and actual ways of studying effectively, and I didn't know there's actual scientific research that goes into this. And so while I'm not a professional, I am simply a humble student who has gone through multiple educational systems. These are tips that worked for me in high school. Throughout high school, I was a straight A student and I got an A in KCSE, and so those are my credentials. Like, let's start the video. Number one, understanding the system. It's really important to understand the goals of the system you're in. I said this in my story a few days ago. For 844 specifically, exams and the system is not there to help you learn. Sadly, the system is there to help you memorize facts and regurgitate information that your teachers have given you and that is in your textbooks. And so the example I specifically used is I didn't waste my time, for example, in chemistry, learning the ins and out of the neurons, okay, learning to do the shells and the electron volts to leave each shell, because that wasn't necessary for me. All I needed to learn was to memorize the electron configurations for the first 20 elements. And if I actually wanted to learn chemistry, like for real, I would learn what an electron is, and I would learn the hundreds, I don't know how many elements are there of elements that are there, but I didn't. All I needed to do was learn the first 20. So don't waste your time learning all the elements that are there in chemistry. You'll die at a young age. Why are you giving yourself stress? No, learn the first 20. That's all you need to know. That's all the system demands of you, and it's important for you to understand the system. Number two is handwrite your notes. I know handwriting notes takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort and energy and space. However, science and research has actually proven that handwriting your notes helps in retaining information. When I write something down in the future, when I'm trying to remember, the memory of me writing it helps the memory of what I wrote come. Okay, so you remember writing and then you remember what you wrote, and that way you get the question right in the exam. And so just take the time, plan your time well, and take the time to handwrite your notes. It's really helpful. You can make your notes pretty if you're that type of person. No judgment here. I am indeed a highlighter hoe and a sticky note queen. What handwriting your notes does is it forces you to focus on the main ideas. The textbook will be 50 pages of a chapter, but when you're writing notes, you can't write 50 pages. And so it will focus you to condense that into 10 pages, which is good because you focus on the main ideas. And the day before the exam or the hour before the exam, you have your notes to read, which is much easier, much quicker, and much more effective than reading from a textbook. Number three is planning and organization. My parents have told me this for so many years. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And honestly, it's true. At the beginning of the term, sit down and look at the topics you're going to go through with your teacher that term, and look through the syllabus and outline for yourself what you need to do, what you need to read, when are the exams. And I know in 844 we didn't used to know when homework would be because it was just a daily thing, but the exams, you know when they'll be. So plan out your reading with the exams in mind so that you can start reading 2 weeks before the exam and not be scrambling to try and retain 4 syllabuses of chemistry the day before the exam. You're not going to be able to, and you're going to not pass your exam. Have a notebook, a folder, a diary, a journal for each subject, or a section of a book for each subject. Don't mix your subjects. Don't write math on page 1, English page 2, Kiswahili page 3. If you're going to put math, English, and Kiswahili in the same book, let page 1 to 50 be maths, 50 to 80 be Kiswahili, and then 80 to 100 be English. That way you can quickly reference the subject you're looking for when you're studying. Another thing in planning is breaking down the topics that you're studying. So for example, if you're looking at physics Form 1 to Form 4 content, there are topics that are easy for you that you already know. Let's say electricity is easy and you already understand electricity. There's no need to read electricity again. But you have a topic like, Father Jesus, what? Newton's laws of motions. Up to date, you have never been able to understand the 3 laws and their subsequent equations, and you find that topic really hard. Once you organize yourself, go through all the topics, all the chapters in all the syllabus, like from 1 to Form 4, write down all the topics, categorize them as you already know, you need to polish, and you have no idea. That way, when you have a few days before the exam, you can focus on the topics that you have no idea about and leave the easy ones, because there's no point of reading the easy ones. And one thing your brain does to trick you is you tend to gravitate towards the easy topics because you have fun reading them. If you find electricity fun, you'll always want to read it, and you'll want to avoid Newton's laws of motion because you know they're hard, and your brain tricks you and you fail these hard topics. So categorize them and focus on the hard ones. As for a timetable, I have mixed feelings about making a quote-unquote study timetable, because sometimes you make a timetable and it doesn't work out how you want to. So I will say, if you want to make a timetable, that's completely fine. If you feel better having a timetable, make it, but don't be scared to change up the timetable. If you're going to study maths 7 to 8, but then there was a school parade 7 to 8, just remix your timetable, figure it out, and don't let that stress you. Number 4 is prioritize. Focus on what matters. And Ali Abdal changed my life when he introduced me to this rule. I'd never heard of it before, but had applied it in my studying. It's called the 80-20 rule. That 20% of the material you're studying is what's important, and 80% is just minutiae. It's just like tiny facts that you will spend a lot of time memorizing, but are not actually going to count towards a large majority of the exam. So for example, in maths, there's no way you're going to do each and every maths question that exists in preparation for your exam or for your KCSE. Instead, the better strategy would be to focus on the main formulas that are going to be used. Like for example, you learn the BODMAS formula. There's no way you're going to be able to make and do every question involving BODMAS, but as long as you know BODMAS, you can apply it. And so you focus on the 20% that's important and not the 80% that takes up the majority of your time, but that actually doesn't have the biggest results. Here we're focusing on minimizing your effort and maximizing your output. Same thing with essays. You can never know each and every essay. You can never have practiced each and every composition or each and every insha. The best way for you to study is to make a template, or to remember the template: introduction, body, topic, sentence, conclusion, or whatever, and use that in all subsequent essays instead of trying to memorize essays. Number 5 is practice makes really good at exams. And we've had this before: practice makes perfect. I say practice makes good at exams because practice exams are literally the best thing you can do for yourself. Testing yourself often, frequently, is the best thing you can do to prepare for an examination. Testing yourself is important because you're more likely, like science has proven, that you remember information more when you test yourself on it rather than when you reread the same thing. A lot of students reread their notes or reread the textbook. Rereading has actually been proven to be one of the most inefficient study techniques, so you need to stop doing it and instead test yourself. Testing helps you notice patterns of how the examiner works, which is so important. If you're doing KCSE, physics questions are set a very type of way. I can tell you, I memorized how to answer physics questions. I don't remember specifically how it used to go, and I wish I could. But if you've done physics, you know there's a way they're looking for an answer. There's like a sentence that like answers directly, then another sentence that explains the answer before, and then like a conclusion or something. But you need to understand how the examiner works and how they're going to mark your exam, and you need to notice patterns. Also, doing practice tests will help you see which topics are tested a lot, and you can focus your energy on those topics. There's no point of focusing your energy on homostasis if they're going to focus on mitochondria and photosynthesis. That is the extent of my knowledge in biology. So number 6 is confidence. Even fake confidence is important. When you're going into an exam, there's no way you know each and every question that's going to be there, or you're going to be able to answer each and every question. But having the confidence that you're going to be able to have each and every question is really helpful and really boosts your self-esteem, which increases your confidence in yourself and makes you more confident in answering questions. When you doubt yourself, you're more likely to get a question wrong than if you feel confident in your answer. Even though you feel like it might be a bit wrong, confidently writing down what you know is much better, and you're more likely to get it right. You know how you pick, like you read a question and then your first reaction is to pick choice A, but then you doubt yourself and you pick choice C, but then later, guess what the answer was? The answer was A. That happened to me so many times, and I learned, this is something I learned and I really applied, especially in the SAT when you don't have time, is to have confidence in myself. Even if it's false confidence, just the first answer that comes to your mind, pick it, write it down. Most times it's the one that's correct. Number 7 is active listening. Active listening is a fancy term for just like taking notes when you're listening to a presentation, a lecture. I used to get bored in class when my teachers were teaching at the front, like they're giving a lecture, they're talking about a topic, and I used to get bored, and my mind would, like, I used to sit at a window, so I'd look outside the window and I would like zone out. But I discovered that taking short notes when someone is speaking to you, or when you're listening and just like listening to a lot of information, is really helpful in retaining it. There's something called the forgetting curve, and I'll put it on the screen and links to all these interesting articles down below, that majority of the information you just take in and you forget like 80% of it within the hour. And active listening, just like taking down short notes and main ideas whilst you're listening to a professor or a teacher, is really helpful in retaining the information. And you can now refer to your notes and flesh them out after the class. Number 8 is something I like to call a brain dump. I don't know if there's a term for this, but after I read a chapter of, especially I used to do this for CRE, history, chemistry, and physics when I was in high school. Once I read a chapter of information, let's say I'm reading about, what topic in history do I remember? Let's say I'm reading about the Cold War, yeah? And I've read the whole freaking history textbook chapter about the Cold War. And then I close the textbook. I ask myself, what have I read? Oftentimes you think you remember very little, but you actually have retained a lot of information. And so what you need to do is close your book, close your textbook, close your exercise book, take a blank paper and write out as much as you can remember. So I just used to like sit down and be like, okay, what is the Cold War? Who participated? What were the things that came out of it that were positive, came out of it that were negative? What are the economic effects? What are the social effects? What are the political effects? And I just write down as much as I can remember. And once I've written it down, I realize that I actually remember a lot more than I thought I remembered just by verbally saying it. And again, the power of writing things down comes here again, because once I've written it down, it has been solidified in my memory even more. The neurons are strengthening the connections in the synapses. The next time you need to retrieve this information, it will be easier for you because you'll have strengthened those links in your mind. Instead of just rereading the chapter, rereading helps you in no way. Stop rereading your notes. Take a blank piece of paper, write everything down, just dump all the information you can remember. You are strengthening the connections in your mind. And when you're in the exam, you will remember writing it down. And you've ever had that weird feeling where you can like see the paper and you're trying to be like, what did I write? I remember I wrote in the corner at the top on the right, and then it comes to you. That's your brain at work because you studied effectively. Number 9 is space out your reading. I think this is called like periodic reading or something. I don't know the fancy term for it. So what I mean is, instead of cramming one day before the exam, I know it seems like it won't work, but you need to start studying 2 weeks before the exam so that you can give yourself time to read and reread. And I just said reading was bad and then I said reread. No, what I mean is, so on Monday you read chapter 1, 2, 3. On Tuesday, before that reading chapter 4, 5, 6, brain dump chapter 1, 2, 3. Then if you need a bit of a refresher, refresh quickly, and then move on to chapter 4, 5, 6. That way the information is flowing and is making connections in your mind. Also, the probability that you're going to take an exam in the future with the same information is high. So instead of cramming one day before the exam all the facts about World War I, you will need the same facts next year. So you might as well retain them in long-term memory instead of just in short-term memory like when you're cramming. And next year, you won't need 3 hours to cram World War I because you'll already have it in memory, and you'll just need like 30 minutes to refresh yourself. It seems like a lot of time at the moment. It seems like reading for 2 weeks before an exam is wasting your time when you can do it in one day. But if you look at it over the span of 4 years, it's not wasting your time. In high school, in 844, the exams are divided into paper 1 and paper 2. And so in Form 1 and Form 2, people don't take studying as seriously. They don't take work as seriously. But in Form 1 and Form 2, that's when you have time to spend 2 weeks studying. So I used to spend 2 weeks studying for chemistry, physics, math, whatever. And I retained the information in I put it in long-term memory, I guess. And Form 3 and 4, I was focusing on paper 2 and perfecting paper 1. Meanwhile, my peers who had not been doing the same thing and who had just been cramming were struggling to balance paper 1 and paper 2 in Form 3 and Form 4. So even though I spent more time in Form 1 and Form 2, I invested my time into spacing out my reading. I reaped the benefits in Form 3 and Form 4. Lastly, study groups and teaching someone a concept. If you teach someone something, it solidifies your understanding of the same concept. And this is how I studied maths throughout high school. I barely used to read math by myself. I used to tutor and teach a lot of people math. And in Form 4, this was how I studied chemistry and physics a lot. And study groups are helpful sometimes. Sometimes I don't like study groups because either you're going too fast at the pace of the fastest person, or you're going too slow at the pace of the slowest person. But sometimes it can be helpful for when you're like asking each other questions. We used to ask each other questions in history. Like instead of, sometimes it gets boring to just read notes. So it'd be like, oh, what were the disadvantages of that? Then someone's like, oh, what are the advantages of that? Oh, what year was that in? What year was that in? And that way you ask each other questions and it helps you learn faster, quicker, more effectively, rather than sitting with a textbook that is going to bore the hell out of you. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, those were 10 study tips to help you study effectively from yours truly, an overachieving straight A student. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, I truly appreciate you. Subscribe. There's a button down below that's begging for you to subscribe, because you know I gave you good information. You know I've given you value and I've helped you. So subscribe, please. Thanks. I hope you guys stick around for Saturday's video. It's going to be exciting. It's for something I've been working on for a while, and I'm happy to finally share it with you guys. And I'm sure it will be helpful for all of you. It will be another way for you to get information from me outside my YouTube videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Okay, thanks. Bye.